Hey y'all, so we're going over our area, perimeter, and circumference test study guide today. So the first thing I did was I filled out all of these formulas. Now you'll notice there's a little bit of an oops. These are supposed to be A's. They were accidentally put in as C's. It's okay. But that's why we read the question. So the area of the circle is pi r squared. If you're in my class, I've talked to you about the fact that this is also the same as pi multiplied by r multiplied by r. The area of a triangle is the base times the height divided by 2. Area of a parallelogram as well as area of a rectangle is base times height. Because remember, a rectangle is a parallelogram. There's the bell. Circumference of a circle, that is the outside, the measurement of the outside of the circle is 2 pi r, or pi times the diameter. 2 pi r is 2 times pi times the radius. If you've forgotten pi, what you do is 3.14. Area of a trapezoid is a little tricky. You have to add base 1 plus base 2, multiply it by the height, and then divide it by 2. And to find perimeter, you add all sides. So make sure those are all written down. That will be on your test for you so that you have that information. We just want to make sure you also have it on your study guide. Okay, so moving on. You are going to want your calculator because otherwise this is going to get messy. But I've also told my kiddos that you have to show your formula in order to make sure you're showing your work. So we're looking at the circumference. That's going to be 2 pi, and the radius is half the circle. It already shows that, so it's 2 pi times 4. If I plug that in, should have opened my calculator earlier. I'm going to have 2 times 3.14 times, not 5, times 4, not 54. So my circumference is 25 and 12 inches. Now area is pi times the radius squared. So the radius is 4. So I'm going to do this as 3.14 times 4 times 4. And that's going to give me 50 and 24 inches squared. So square inches. Remember, if you're doing area, it's got to be in square units. We have a rectangle. Perimeter is adding all the sides. So 5 plus 6 plus 5 plus 6. 10 plus 12 is 22 feet. Area is the base times the height. So we've got 5 times 6, which is going to give us 30 square feet. Area of a triangle, base times height divided by 2. Now, if I'm looking at the perimeter first, I'm going to add 10 plus 13 plus 14. 10 plus 13 plus 14 is 37 meters. All right, area. 10 is our base times our height of 13 divided by 2. Remember, your height is always perpendicular to the base, which means that you're looking for a right angle, which is noted by this little square. So 10 times 13 divided by 2 gives us 65 square meters. All right. We have what could be considered either a rhombus or a square or a rectangle. So perimeter, we're going to add all 4 sides. So 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9, which is the same as saying 9 times 4. So our perimeter is 36 centimeters. Our area is base times height, so 9 times 9. So we get 81 square centimeters. we got another triangle. Now, I hope you've noticed these little lines. That tells you things are congruent. If you don't remember what congruent means, it means that they are equal or they are the same. So this side is also 10 yards. So if we're looking at perimeter, we're going to add 5 plus 10 plus 10. Which is going to give us a 25-yard perimeter. Now, if we're looking at the base and the height, base is 5, height is 9. We then divide that by 2. 5 times 9 is 45. Divided by 2, it's going to give us a 22 and 5/10 square yard area. All right, we got a parallelogram. We're still going to add all sides. I'm going to go ahead and label so that I make sure that I've got the right thing. So we've got 15 over here, 13 over here. So I'm going to add 15 plus 15 plus 13 plus 13. And I'm going to get 56 feet. All right, if I'm going to do area, that is the base times the height. The base is 13. We're looking at the perpendicular height, which is 14. And 13 times 14 is 182 square feet. All right, this is a little bit of a funky figure, but if you can look and you can see, okay, right up here, there's another 90-degree angle. This definitely isn't, this is obtuse, if you remember what that means. That means that it's really wide. So my base is 21, my height is 18. But first, let's talk about doing our perimeter. Perimeter, you're just going to add all 3 sides. So we got 21 plus 22 plus 19. Because our actual triangle is 22, 19, and 21. So I'm going to add 21, 22, and 19. And that gives me a perimeter of 62 kilometers. All right. Now, base times height. The base we decided was 21. The height is 18. So I'm going to multiply 21 times 18 and then divide that by 2. And I'm going to find that my area of this triangle is 189 kilometers squared. Square kilometers. All right, we got another circle. Now this gives us the diameter. So remember, circumference could be 2 pi r or pi times the diameter. So I'm going to go ahead, just to switch it up, do pi times the diameter, which is 100. So 3.14 times 100 gives me 314 centimeters. Now, if you decided to do that the other way and do 2 times 3.14 times 50, you would get the same thing, because we know the radius is half of the diameter, so our radius is 50 centimeters. All right, so when I'm doing my area, I've got pi times 50 squared, which is 50 times 50. So when I plug it in my calculator, I'm going to do 3.14 times 50 times 50. And I will find a very large area of 7,850 centimeters squared. But what if it doesn't give you a shape? It just gives you some words. Now, I've talked to my students about this. I want you to draw it, just because it will help you to understand what it's actually asking you. This says we got a circle. It has a radius of 12. Radius is the measurement from the center to the outside, so it's half the circle. So when I'm doing this, 2 pi times 12 2 times 3.14 times 12, not 2, I will get 75.36 feet for my circumference. Come down here and I'm going to get pi times 12 squared. So 3.14 times 12 times 12. I'm going to find an area of 452 and 1/1600 feet squared. What about a rectangle? 14 by 17. We know that it is a rectangle. Its opposite sides are equal. So in order to find the perimeter, I'm going to have 17 plus 17 plus 14 plus 14. It's going to give you 62 feet. And our area is base times height, or length times width, which is 14 times 17. Which will give you 238 square feet. All right, this one gives us our diameter of 22. Diameter is from one side to the other through the center. So it's the full length of the circle. So if we're going to do circumference, pi times 22, 3.14 times 22, we're going to get 69 8/8 of a yard. The area is pi r squared, so we do need to take half of 22. So 22 divided by 2 is 11. So we're going to do pi times 11 squared. So we've got 3.14 times 11 times 11. And we find our area of 379 9/4 yards squared, or square yards. And last but not least, a square with a side of 10 millimeters. So a square has 4 sides that are all equal, which means that our perimeter is going to be 40 millimeters, because 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10. And our area, 10 times 10, will be 100 millimeters. Oops, Mrs. Quill forgot to write down her formulas. Okay, so we should have written 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, or 4 times 10. I will take either. And then 10 times 10. All right, let's look at the other side. If you need to pause this just so you can check that you got it all, go for it. All right. Suzanne is making a frame for an 8-inch by 10-inch photo. Okay. Frame. Now, if I'm talking about a frame, I'm talking about the outside. So in other words, I'm talking about the perimeter. But it's 8 inches by 10 inches. She needs to know how much wood she needs for the frame. So in other words, she's asking, if I buy 8 inches and 8 inches and 10 inches and 10 inches, what is the perimeter? So we're going to add 10 plus 10 plus 8 plus 8. 20 plus 16 is 36 inches. So she will have to buy 36 inches of wood. The diameter of a quarter is 24 millimeters. All right, diameter means I'm going all the way across, 24 millimeters. What is the quarter's circumference? All right, so we got circumference. we're going to write down the formula for circumference, which is pi r, 2 pi r, or pi times diameter. In this case, it gives us the diameter, so it's easier just to do pi times diameter. So in other words, we're going to take 3.14 and multiply it by 24. And we find that the circumference is 75 and 36 millimeters. The floor of our classroom is 50 by 75 feet. What is the area of our floor? So we're trying to find an area. So in other words, we need to do 50 times 75. 50 times 75. And we're going to find that the area of our floor is 3,750 feet squared. Lisa is covering a rectangular table with small square tiles. So we got a rectangular table. It will take 32 rows of tiles with 48 tiles in each row. How many tiles are needed to cover the table? So we're wanting to cover this table, which means we're talking about area. So area of a rectangle is going to be our base times our height. So we're going to do 32 times 48. And we will find Lisa needs 1,536 square tiles. Okay. We're going to use the figure below to answer question 24 and 25. So we have a composite figure. First, it wants us to find the perimeter. We find perimeter by adding all the sides. So I've got 10, 8, 4, 8, 6, and 16. So I'm going to add 10 plus 8 plus 4 plus 8 plus 6 plus 16 and I will find the perimeter of my figure is 52 feet. All right. To find area, we talked about with composite figures having to break them into separate pieces. So I'm going to break this right here. And that gives me this figure that has a 10 by 8 base. And this figure which has an 8 by 6. So there's actually two ways we could have broken this. So I'll show you both ways. So for my 10 by 8, I'm going to say I got two rectangles. I got rectangle 1 and rectangle 2. Either way, it's going to be base times height. So I'm going to do 10 times 8, which is 80 square feet. And I've got 6 times 8, which is 48 square feet. I'm going to add those two together, and I should find that my area is 128 square feet. You may have broken this up a different way. Maybe you tried to break it up this way. And so you had a figure with a 4 by 8 and a figure with a 16 by 6. Both of these work, and they should get the same area. I'll show you that. So if you decide to do rectangle 1 is your 4 by 8, and rectangle 2 is your 16 by 6. 4 times 8 is 32. 16 times 6 is 96. 96 plus 32 is still 128. So either way you break it works. It just depends on what you see first. All right, find the area of the shaded region. So when it has a shaded region, that means that you're going to subtract because we've got a shape inside of a shape. So I got two rectangles. I got rectangle 1, which I'm going to say is my bigger one, and rectangle 2, which is my slightly smaller unshaded figure. So for rectangle 1, it's still base times height for both. My base is 14, my height is 11. So I'm going to multiply 14 times 11. And I get 154 inches squared. Ooh, that's blurry. All right. My base and my height of my rectangle 2 is going to be 9 times 10, which is 90 square inches. In order to find the area of just the shaded region, I'm going to take 154 and subtract 90. And I will find my area is 64 square inches. Over on 27, I've got a square and I've got a circle. Okay, my square is larger, so I'm going to subtract the circle from the square. I have base times height, which is 20 times 20. Which is 400 kilometers squared. My circle is pi r squared. Currently, it tells me my radius is 10. So I'm going to do 3.14 times 10 times 10, which will give me an area of 314 square kilometers. So I'm going to take that 400, subtract my 314, and I will find that the area of the shaded region is 86 square kilometers. Susan makes a rectangular rug that has an area of 300 square inches and a width of 15. So I'm going to draw my rug. I've got 300 square inches of area. I've got a width of 15 inches. First, we need to find the length. So, in order to find area, we know that it's either base times height or length times width. We know the area is 300. And then we've got the length times 15. So in order to solve this, we're going to undo what's happening to length to isolate it. So in other words, instead of multiplying by 15, we're going to divide by 15 to find the length. So 300 divided by 15 gives us a length of 20 inches. It then asks us to find the perimeter. Because this is a rectangular rug, we know that the opposites are the same. They're congruent. And so we're going to add 20 plus 20 plus 15 plus 15, and we'll find the perimeter is 70 inches. You ride a Ferris wheel that has a circumference of 108 feet. Draw my Ferris wheel. Circumference is the outside. We need to know the diameter of the Ferris wheel. So that's asking us to find how far across. Now, circumference is pi times diameter, or pi r squared, not pi r squared, sorry, 2 pi r. But since we're trying to find diameter, it's easiest just to write the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. Circumference is 108. Pi is 3.14. We need to find the diameter. To get diameter all by itself, we have to undo what's happening to it by dividing by 3.14. So we're going to do 108 divided by 3.14. And we will find the Ferris wheel's diameter is 34.39 feet. You could also have rounded this. If you got 34.4, I would count that correct as well. Especially if you did it the 2 pi r way and found it that way. Both would be correct. All right, this bottom one, we talked about this on our notes. First, it asks you, a park is 300 by 500 yards. 300 by 500. What is the area, or how many square yards are in the park? That's asking you for area. So we've got 300 times 500, which is 150,000 square yards. So that means that my total square yards is 150,000. They switch between yards and feet here. That's an oops. We're going to say this means this is supposed to be yards too. We're not going to do that to ourselves because that would be mean. Okay, so this asks us to complete the chart. So if you remember, I talked about our part over whole is equal to percent over 100. The total just gave us the bottom of all of our proportions. So we're going to fill out the bottom half of all of our proportions. And we have to fill out 1, 2. It's technically asking, we're going to do 2 proportions and then I'm going to show you how to fill out the blank one. So percent is always over the 100%. So we're going to put percent over 100. 15,000 square feet. If we are comparing, it's supposed to be yards, sorry. 15,000 square yards, we always keep our yards over our yards. We want to make sure that we keep our units consistent. So just like when we talked about ratios, we always, if we're comparing things, we want to try and compare the same thing. In this case, we are comparing yards to yards, percents to percents. So, cross multiply and divide by the number left over. Cross multiply and divide by the number left over. My flower beds, 40 times 150,000, divide by 100. I'm going to have 60,000 square yards devoted to flower beds. 15,000 times 100. Divide it by 150,000. Make sure you're including the right number of zeros. That is 10%. So those 2 proportions helped fill out the missing pieces up here. But the other doesn't actually have anything filled out for you. So what you need to do is check, okay, I know everything adds up to 100%. So 40 plus 10 is 50. 100 minus 50% leaves me with another 50%. From here, you can do 2 things. You could either set up a proportion, or you could add 60,000, 15,000, and subtract that from 150,000. What I'm going to do is find 50% of 150,000. Now here's the other thing. Because we know 50% is half, yes, you could technically divide by 2. But I want us to practice our proportions because it's not always going to be that simple. So percent over 100, cross multiply and divide. 50 times 150,000 divided by 100 Leaves us with 75,000 square yards. All right, guys, I think you're amazing. I think you're going to do great on this test. Make sure that if there's something that you didn't understand or you want us to go back over in class, that you star it and remember to ask in class. All right. Love you. Bye.